I call Chris Ockenvoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in the second reading of this bill, I, along with my fellow members of the Government Administration Select Committee, discussed the submissions we received and how we approached the points raised. This is a process I believe in, Mr. Speaker, a process of listening and considering and reaching a conclusion based on persuasive argument rather than personal reactive response. This process is over. Now it is time for we as a Parliament to cast our final votes on this bill and allow our part in this debate to come to an end. As politicians, we are here to legislate, but it's only society which can determine how decisions made by this Parliament affect and are absorbed into our social mores. As a former Republican governor and current United States ambassador to China, John Huntsman, wrote in an article outlining the Conservative support for same-sex marriage, and I quote, "Marriage is not an issue that people rationalise through the abstract lens of the law." This debate that we've been engaged in has highlighted a divide in opinion amongst this nation, between young and old, secular and spiritual, even between members of the same faith and the same family. This type of divide is not new, and nor should it be something that we avoid or dismiss. We faced many issues of conscience in our nation's relatively short history, and I think we have grown stronger by facing them together, not always as adversaries, but as fellow members of a small and empathetic nation, which often gives fine examples to the rest of the world. It's because of this shared history, Mr. Speaker, that I have the faith that we can seize this opportunity to have discussions around the issues raised by this bill in our homes, our churches, and everywhere honest, thoughtful debate is respected. This bill is not a panacea, but it is an opportunity. If it is to pass, and Mr. Speaker, we should pass this bill, that is just the beginning of a change process. And I think everyone will acknowledge that. It is just a beginning. As an older person, I would ask that the younger generation, epitomised, of course, in my colleague Nikki Kay, show some patience and consideration for those of my generation who will need time to adjust to a change which will be very, very new to us. By the same token, we cannot move forward as a nation if we older ones ignore or reject the heartfelt pleas for respect by the LGBT community and the younger brigade. We need their acceptance as they are entitled to our acceptance. These impassioned pleas come through loud and clear when you examine the submission process. Stories of children too scared to talk to their parents about their sexuality for fear of punishment, or worse, for fear of total rejection. We may not always agree with our children's decision, and as any parent will tell you, it's our job to worry, but to create an environment where your child cannot even talk to you about the issues affecting their lives is unconscionable. Mr. Speaker, there are those on both sides of the bills who concentrated on their own point of view to the neglect of any consideration of other points of view. It's necessary, if this bill passes, and we should pass this bill, for groups to reconsider individual standpoints. I feel, particularly in respect to the churches, Mr. Speaker, that there's a need to pick up the banner, somewhat tattered and torn, the banner of Christian love, somewhat tarnished, But if it's picked up with hands of every generation, of whatever ethnicity or gender identity their human bodies individually glory in, and then their spirits can restitch, restore and make the banner resplendent, and to God be the glory. Thank you.
I call the Honourable Ruth Dyson.